Hey guys, let's talk about your essay that you're going to be working on this week. So we looked at this first slide already, and we talked about the prompt and how, some of the differences are that it's a full essay. It does not specify which literary devices, or techniques, whatever you want to call it. Although I've already told you that you need to be working on diction and figurative language. And it says attitude towards war, which is another way of saying tone. Okay, so we're going to be looking at how to write a literary analysis essay in full. This is a similar or same template actually that you used for your point sentence over facing it. And I told you also that you don't have to use this verbatim, but these components at least need to be in the thesis statement that you write. Everything starts from that thesis statement. Everything that you write must prove the claim that you're making in this thesis statement. Okay, so the flow chart due last week, and then your essays must be typed and double spaced in a Google Doc, which I have provided to you. It is due by Sunday, November 8th. And the name of the document, you shouldn't have to do anything because when you open it, it should create. It's already called Literary Analysis Essay Dulce Patrick, and it should just add your name at the beginning of it. On the first page, in the upper left corner, you need to have your name. If you're working with a partner, that's both of your names, your class period, the date that you're turning it in, spelled out in full. So it shouldn't be like 11/7/20. It should be November 7th, 2020. Or November 8th, 2020. And then the assignment, literary analysis, poetry. That's just on the first page. Okay, so that's kind of like the formatting stuff. And I want you to start thinking about like what is the purpose of this literary analysis essay, and how do I organize all of my thoughts. So if you think of your introduction paragraph, it starts really broad because you're talking about the piece of literature as a whole, the poem as a whole. You've got to give enough background that your reader knows what the piece of literature is about. They have some context. They know the name of the piece. They know the author's full name. And they know any relevant plot information, which is where I kind of said some background information. You should not retell the whole poem or the whole story. Just give enough that's relevant to the points that you're going to be making. And then you should close out your introduction with your thesis. So you're starting really broad, the name of the work, kind of context, relevant plot information, and narrowing it down to the specific thesis, the specific thing that you're going to say about this piece of literature. Here's some tips on beginnings. This is a little bit different. This talks a lot about like catching the reader's attention. A literary analysis essay is a formal essay. It's not a story. And so, yes, you want to catch your reader's attention, but you don't want to be cliche or use overused techniques. A lot of people have a really hard time knowing where to start. If you have a hard time figuring out like what your first sentence should be, at least get your thesis written down. And then you may wait until later to go back and add to your introduction once you have the process underway and you see the direction that your paper takes. And your introduction, somewhere in that paragraph, it should reveal the structure of your essay. So even just in your thesis saying diction and figurative language in the order that those paragraphs are going to appear in your essay reveals some of the structure of your essay. And then the last thing, I see this a lot, like some people forget to put their thesis in their introduction, or they make their thesis their only thing in their introduction. This is different. This is not a PEAR or paragraph. This is a full essay, so you need a full introduction paragraph that introduces your thesis and introduces your paper. The thesis is just one component of your introduction. These are some things to suggest, or that I suggest, or that various people have suggested on how to begin in an interesting way. You need to think about your audience and purpose. I'm your audience. Your purpose is to prove how Wilfred Owen creates his attitude towards war. And what is the most appropriate way to start off an essay like that? It's an analytical essay. So it's most likely not going to be irony or humor, especially this poem is a serious poem. And things like facts and statistics, those tend to be overused. And that's why I also marked out rhetorical questions. Very overused, cliche way to begin. Things to avoid: an apology, a complaint, a dictionary definition of a word, a platitude, which that really shouldn't be anywhere in your paper where you're praising the author for what they did or giving your opinion on how well they did something. Your opinion and praises do not belong in an analytical essay. Referring to the title in some catchy cliche way, I would leave that out. And we already talked about rhetorical questions being left out. Okay, so conclusions are kind of the opposite of the introduction. You're going to start very specific with where you've been in your paper or the points that you've been proving, and then you're going to go out to a more broad message and how it connects, how this piece of literature and what the author has done connects to society or mankind or the world at large. So think of this a little bit like the R piece in your PEAR paragraphs, which a lot of people have difficulty with this. You are going beyond this poem. You're going to life as a whole. What's his message? It's about war. It's about the things that we glorify, maybe. And so go beyond just the specifics of this poem to how does it apply to life as a whole. And then over here, you can see like this is kind of the structure of your whole essay. So here's your introductory paragraph and here's your conclusion paragraph. You're starting really broad, talking about, basic plot, relevant plot, background information, narrowing it down to your thesis right here, what it is you're going to prove. Then you have your two body paragraphs in the middle, which is where you're very specific. You're using examples, citing examples from the text. Those paragraphs kind of follow the PEAR structure, but this is where you're going to be specific to the poem. And then your conclusion is going to start out also specific to the poem and broaden out to that message overall about society or mankind or humanity. So I think this is a good visual for you to kind of understand like the overall flow of your paper. I think it's just a good visual. Okay, so we're going to talk about conclusions. It can do several things. It can summarize. It can inspire the reader. Summarize is probably like the weak end of things as far as what a conclusion can do. It can inspire the reader to further thought or even action. You can return to the beginning by repeating key words, phrases, or ideas. I would be very careful about that it's not repeated word for word. Try and put a new spin on those things. You can also try to surprise the reader by providing a convincing real-life connection to support a thesis, and that definitely is going beyond the specific piece of literature. Things to avoid. Do not start your conclusion with "in conclusion," "in summary." I hope I have shown you shouldn't have "I," no personal pronouns anywhere in the essay, no "I" or "you," which goes to the next one. You have just learned. Finally, all in all, at the end of the day, those are unnecessary, cliche, overused. Your reader is smart enough to see that the end is near, that this is the last paragraph of the essay. And so those things are really kind of, when I say it's almost insulting to your reader, like you're hitting them over the head, like, hey, in case you didn't know, I'm about to wrap things up. You don't need to say those things. Okay, now we're going to talk about body paragraphs. I told you that your body paragraphs are very similar to the PEAR format. As long as you have those components from the paragraph format in your body paragraphs, then you've covered what you need to cover in your body paragraphs. You need to have a topic sentence or point sentence to show what that paragraph is going to be about. So one of them is going to be about figurative language. The other body paragraph is going to be about diction. Then you need to have concrete details. These are your evidence, examples, quotes with citations, so Owen and the line number in parentheses. Remember, those quotes need to be embedded. And then your commentary and analysis on each quote. And then you need your last sentence of your body paragraph needs to bridge the gap to the next paragraph. So there needs to be some kind of wrap up or tie or segue into the next paragraph, whether it's the body paragraph that you're transitioning to, or if it's your second body paragraph and you're transitioning to your conclusion. And remember, on your planning sheet, those boxes at the bottom could help you transition out of your body paragraph, certainly could help you transition out of your body paragraph into your conclusion. So those are some things to consider. Here's where you have already been. You've been planning. You've completed the flow chart. Here's where things are going to get a little tricky because I'm not going to check every step of the way, but I promise if you do these things, it will help your grade. I don't like to think that it's all about the grade, but I am realistic that I know that for many of you, the bottom line is the grade. But I also want you to be learning along the way and making improvements along the way. One draft does not a strong essay make. You should be revising and editing, and those are two different things. Revising is looking at the content of your essay, and editing is looking at grammar and mechanics and those types of things. Okay, so you're going to go through a color checking process. And yes, it's time consuming, but again, you will see things. That's why I'm giving you a specific process to go through, because you probably haven't gone through a process like this on your own before. And you will see things that you don't know that you're doing in your writing. So you're going to color check. You're going to look at your hook, your lead, the very beginning of the essay, and see if you did a good job drawing your reader in. And then in purple, you're going to highlight your thesis. It could be more than one sentence, but it should be no more than two. In yellow, you're going to highlight everything that came directly from the text. So those are your sentences that have quotes from the text. Highlight those in yellow. That's for your whole paper. Let me go back to this. You shouldn't have any quotes in your introduction either. Those should just be in your body paragraphs. In pink, here's where you're going to highlight what came from you, from your own brain, your own thoughts, your own ideas, your commentary and analysis. In blue, highlight the central idea or theme statements. It may be in more than one place. So like it could be the very last sentence of your body paragraphs and in your conclusion. Okay, this is just a review of how you're going to color code your paper. Obviously, it would be a huge red flag if some of these colors are missing or one of these colors is missing. You need to fix that. But some things you might find. Maybe your thesis wasn't as clear as you thought it was. It was hard for you to find it in your introduction. Maybe your thesis was weak. Maybe you need more text evidence. Maybe you don't have at least 2 examples in each body paragraph. Maybe you have explanation where you should have analysis or commentary, like maybe you're just paraphrasing the quote, but you're not analyzing it and you're not explaining or you're not commenting on how it proves your thesis. Maybe your analysis is repetitive, and some of that is okay to an extent because you are going to keep going back to prove your thesis. And so there will be some repetition naturally just because of that. Maybe it's unclear which commentary or analysis goes with which textual evidence. Maybe your analysis needs to be tied in better. Maybe it just doesn't connect well with your evidence. Okay, so then you're going to do a backwards outline. This just helps you check the organization of your paper. So, usually you would do an outline before you write. In this case, you're going to do an outline after you have written to check the organizational structure of your writing. So this is just an example of an essay that someone wrote. And you're just kind of like summarizing or paraphrasing each part of your essay so that you can see the flow of it. It could be every sentence. It could be every couple sentences, just summarizing it in the order it appears in your paper. And then you can see, like, does this flow logically? Or are things like disjointed and they don't really flow well, they're out of order. So you may find that you may notice if you have a good sense of direction or bad sense, or not having a good sense of direction with where things are going. Maybe you don't have enough context to let your reader know, like, what was going on with that quote. You may find that things you thought were there aren't there. And you may just see like a really obvious, better arrangement for your writing. Okay. Style is the next thing you're going to look at, your writing style. You're going to underline every other sentence. And yes, again, I know this is time consuming. And then you're going to list the first 4 words of each sentence. So here's an example. The first 4 words of each sentence. You could just put quote. You don't have to list, you really shouldn't have very many sentences that begin with a quote, because if any, because they should be embedded into your own quote, your own sentence, like this one here. Okay. Here's what you'll notice by jotting down those first 4 words. So underlining just helps you notice where your sentences, where each new sentence starts. From your first 4 words, you may notice any repetitiveness in your sentence structures, overuse of key words, any awkward construction in your sentences. You'll notice whether you have strong word choice or not. You may notice you don't have variety of sentences. You may notice that you need to add more transitions or stronger transitions. You should check your subject and verb agreement to make sure that those, that your subjects and verbs agree with each other. And then also verb tense shifts. You should always stay in the present tense. Avoid progressive tense, that's ing. You should avoid that. Be careful to minimize your use of be verbs like am, is, are, was, were. Are your quotes embedded? Did you embed them into your own sentence, or is it a quote bomb where you just dropped it in there and you didn't give context and you didn't weave it into your own sentence? That's a big problem. You should also recognize any unequal development. Like if you have some thoughts or points are better supported than others, you need to have equal development of all of your claims, your ideas, and your commentary on your evidence. Okay, after you do those things, you should notice what you want to work on and improve for your second draft. And then peer edit. This is a little different because we're in the virtual school classroom setting. You don't necessarily have to have a peer edit it. If you're working with a partner, maybe both of you should go through this process. You can maybe have someone at home read it. But you could do it again. You could do it yourself, but you need to be real with yourself. It's hard when you're looking at your own writing. These are the things you need to look for. These 10 items. You're looking again at your thesis. You're looking at your evidence. You're looking at your analysis. You're looking at the punctuation of your quotes, making sure that they are embedded. You're looking at your conclusion. You're looking at making sure that you avoid summary. If you're just summarizing, you're automatically going to get a 4 on the 9-point scale. If you don't have strong analysis, are your sentences clear? Look for any minor mistakes like spelling, grammar, the use of you or I, which should be avoided. And then I want you to give yourself a score on the 9-point scale, or have someone else give you that if they're doing this for you. Here's some cheap and easy ways to make your writing more formal and mature. These are some really great tips. It talks about transitions. You should always avoid contractions like can't, right, cannot. The pair really will take care of your organization if you're having issues with that. Yes, it's a little monotonous and tedious, but it does the job. It allows you to focus on your ideas because you already have a planned out structure. And then that connecting sentence at the end of each paragraph will also help make your writing more formal and mature, which should bring you up higher on the 9-point scale. Okay, so then you're ready for draft 3. And then after you do draft 3, look at it again, and you're not rewriting every draft. These are revisions that you're doing to your paper that's a work in progress. Make sure your title, author, genre are clear. This is a poem. A short work like that needs to be in quotation marks. Make sure they are spelled correctly, both the title and the author's name. This is so important. Read it out loud for fluency. Maybe even record yourself reading it out loud so then you can play it back and hear it. Or have someone else read it out loud. Again, you will catch so many things that you won't catch when you're just looking at your own writing over and over again. Proofread your sentences. Again, look at subject-verb agreement, pronoun agreement, verb tense, any obvious typos. You've got Grammarly. It doesn't catch everything, but it catches more than if you don't use it. At this point, you've looked at your essay enough times that there's really no excuse other than laziness for typos and spelling errors. Are your quotes embedded? And then do you have the correct citations for your quotes? And then it's time for your final draft. Here's what's going to happen when you turn in your final draft. I am going to look at it quickly, and I'm going to categorize each essay into one of 3 groups: revise, edit, or accept. Revise means that there are some major revisions that need to be done before I'm going to grade it. Edit means there are grammar and usage mechanic issues that need to be addressed before I will grade it. So revise has to do with the content. Edit has to do with writing style. And then accepted means you're good. It doesn't mean you're going to get an A, but it means you're good enough that I'm going to go ahead and grade it. So if you get an R, here are some things that could be the possible causes and some things that you need to do. Major revisions to your content. If you get an E for edit, here are some things that you may have done and that need to be worked on in order for me to accept it and grade it. If I give you an accept, you're done, celebrate, and go read your book of choice. So I think that this probably sounds a lot longer than it is, and it is time consuming. We would be doing this in class, so you might think of it that way. Like we would do all of these revisions in probably one class period. So, you may think of that as far as how much time you want to allow for yourself. So it sounds a lot worse than it is. I promise if you put this work in, you will be so proud, much more proud of your finished product than if you don't put this work in. An essay should never be like a one and done. You should always be revising the content, looking at your writing specifically, editing for grammar, mechanics, those things. And again, that is probably one of the things that will get under my skin the most is like careless grammar and mechanics, because there are so many tools at your fingertips today that if you don't use those things to check your spelling and grammar, it's just laziness. And I don't have much tolerance for that. So good luck on your writing. And I hope this has helped you. Please reach out to me if you have any questions during the process this week. I am not expecting to see all of your drafts. I can see like a timeline of when you've worked on your writing. And so you may consider like, I can see if you just wrote it one time and turned it in. And that will probably be reflected in your grade. I mean, the fact that you haven't taken the time to revise it and edit it will probably show in the quality of your work. So take advantage of those specific tips. I think that's one of the things that's great about this, is it gives you specific things to look for and a specific process to go through, rather than just saying, read your essay again and look for any problems, or have someone else read it. Those are helpful, but not as productive as going through specific a specific process that helps you look at your writing in a way that you might not otherwise look at it. Okay. I think that's it.